This is North Pod, a North Melbourne fan podcast, hosted by Jason Hunt.
Stevenson with his own moves. Carrington. North are in front.
Hello and welcome back to North Pod. We're officially in the postseason. We're in trade mode and draft mode and where did it all go wrong mode. The North Melbourne season is over. We've obviously got the AFLW to look forward to at the moment. They won their first game on the weekend, which was fantastic. It's great to see a North Melbourne side that's capable of being competitive. So, it was a great win against the Saints down in Hobart. It was great to see some of those new faces playing well. We might talk about that in the coming weeks. Got a bit of a different episode for this week. Did a bit of a collaboration with Dean Vasic from #Kangaroos and Josh Neal from Further North Podcast. The other two North Melbourne podcasts worth listening to out there, so definitely check them out if you haven't already. But the three of us just got together. Dean kind of hosted, and we talked about all things North Melbourne, talked about the year and what we're hoping to see from this upcoming draft and trade period. So, it's a bit of a long one. It's a good chat. Hopefully you enjoy it, and I'll see you after the episode.
All right, boys and girls, we have the Podfathers themselves on tonight, the two lads who make podcasts a bit more professional than mine. I'm joined by Josh Neal from the Further North Podcast and Jason Hunt from the North Pod Show. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have you on, both of you together. Now, we'll start with you, Josh. And how have you found it doing a podcast this year? I'll talk a bit about it off air with you. I know both of you are rookies. I don't know which one is the Harry Sheasel or George Wardlaw, but yeah, Josh, how have you found the experience of talking about North every week this year? Because as you know, and as we talked about it off air, it can be difficult some weeks, especially when you lose 20 in a row, and try and find positives and keep a positive energy doing the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on, Dean, as well, and get any sort of recognition for me being anything like Shees or George. That's unreal praise straight off the bat for me. So I don't know if I can live up to that, but it's been an interesting ride starting the podcast this year. Sort of started because Alistair Clarkson signs. I think we're going to win the premiership, and I thought, I don't know, maybe I could do a podcast. I did a podcast previously with a friend for about 3 years and that stopped. So I still had the urge to keep doing it. And I don't know, it was interesting sort of, especially midway through the season when we did have a lot of losses stacking up going, yeah, wow, I've got to watch all these games now and people are expecting me to do it. Mentally tough, but hey, a good start and a good end to the year. I don't know. I got through it. That's all I can really tell you right now. But next year's going to be the test. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Jason? Full credit to both of you as well, because you both stick to a schedule, and it does take a lot of discipline and more prepping as well, which can be a time killer. Jason, how have you found it this year?
Yeah, similar. I'd had the idea several years ago. It's just one of those things that I thought about for a long time, and then it took me a while to actually do it. And then when we won those first games for the year, I thought, oh, great, we're going to be, a bit on the up. This will be a good time to jump on because I'll be happier watching games. So I think I got started in round 4 and then, just reacted to 19 straight losses. So that was tough.
Awful time.
But it wasn't great timing. But it was good that last weekend to actually have a win and, it felt so different. So, I think similar to Josh, like it was challenging sometimes, more so like I'd always watch the games anyway, but it's more, you just love to switch off and once it's done, like walk away from it. But you feel like you've got to, then spend an hour thinking about what you're going to say and then say it and relive it a little bit, which got challenging sort of 18, 19 times in a row. But I think just interacting with people online and talking with the fans of North Melbourne and that kind of thing at least gave me some semblance of happiness after that many losses, because at the end of the day, like we're all in this together. Like there's not a single North Melbourne fan that's happy about where we are, but I think it's great to talk with people around, like who are we going to trade or what are we going to do about this position? I think that kind of kept me invested and somewhat, I won't say happy, but it gave me something to look forward to maybe.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, You just talked about challenges there, Jason. What about you, Josh? What were the challenges with you, like throughout the course of the year doing the podcast? Yeah, I know it's a lot of prepping, and you're sort of trying to make it up as you go along, and trying to think off the fly as well when you're doing it. Any other big challenges for you?
Well, I think it was mainly just keeping it entertaining as much as possible. You know, podcasting and that sort of stuff, we've all got a bit of experience now, and you've got to be entertaining enough to keep people listening every single week. And I think that was the hardest thing. Maybe when, I'm sure one day, hopefully we can all find out that when the club is winning more games than not, it's going to be pretty simple to everyone to keep everybody engaged. But I think that was the thing, making sure that I was entertaining enough, and people switch off very easy because there's so much content sort of there now. So I think that was the main challenge for me, but I found it really helpful, especially getting involved with the guys from North Melbourne, Closer to a Flag. I think they really helped me engage with it all and get the fan base going. And even the Bay 29 stuff we sort of do. So they sort of do. And I was able to get in on as well. That helped me stay engaged and realize that there are really passionate fans out here. And once that sort of happened, it was a lot easier. But yeah, like we spoke about before, that mid-season grind of losses, I just wanted to make sure I was entertaining enough to keep people listening, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'll ask you this, Josh, as well, but you guys do solo podcasts as well. Now, I find it really difficult to talk. I find it easier just talking to you guys, asking the questions you guys answer. For me, how did you find that, Jason? Because sometimes your podcast can go for a bit of time talking to yourself. I mean, yeah, did you find that a challenge as well?
I did. And I think it's a bit of that imposter syndrome because you're wondering, like, sure, I've been talking for 40 minutes, but have I said anything that's worth listening to? And I guess I hope that I have, but it is a bit of that. Like, I think for me, it was around, I'm a fan of the NBA. I know you are too, Josh, just not because we've spoken about it, because I've heard you talk about it. And I listened to I follow Toronto Raptors, and there was a guy that did a solo podcast just reacting to every Raptors game. And I guess I kind of I was inspired, I suppose, by that, because I too couldn't think of anything more boring, like when I was imagining it, than listening to one bloke talk for 40 minutes. But when I kind of got into the niche of what I want to do, I think it just takes a lot more preparation, because you're not just generating questions. You think about how am I going to transition from one thing to another, and how am I going to fill this time? So yeah, it is a challenge. I think it's good. I know that, Dean, you do almost all of your stuff's collaborative. I think it's a great feel to have lots of people, because you can't disagree with yourself, like when you're in a solo situation. Yeah. And I think those disagreements is often what makes a great podcast, when people are disagreeing respectfully, or at least like having different opinions. So yeah, it's hard to disagree with yourself, but I guess you've got to kind of have an opinion that you can at least explain, rather than try and argue with someone that's not there.
Yeah, I mean that would. Yeah, I mean, you get enough criticism online sometimes, so yeah, I mean that people will let you know, I guess. But look, as far as I've seen from comments and ratings and all that, look, people have been very supportive, which makes it a lot easier, I guess. What about you, Josh? Now, you've done some long podcasts as well, I've noticed, and you've done some solo ones. Have you found that more challenging than actually, talking to like a Marnie Cohen, which you've had on a few times as well?
Well, I was going to say, yeah, the podcast, as I'm sure you know, Dean, do balloon out a little bit when Marnie's on. She does love to chat North. But look, yeah, doing the solo ones was interesting. An old job I used to have, I did a lot of public speaking. I think I got a lot of experience in a past job for about 3 or 4 years. And I don't know, one of the tricks I've always done when sort of talking to myself in a podcast is I move my hands around a lot and try and get expressive, because I find it helps, maybe my tone of voice go up and down, and it's a little bit more engaging to listen to when it's just you solo. I didn't know if they'd be any good or not when I did it, honestly. And I listened back to the first couple of solo ones. I was like, I think you could sort of hear that I'm getting animated, or I don't know, trying to put a lot of tone and speech, and I don't know, make my thoughts come across through not just your voice, but yeah, maybe people can hear the body language to a degree.
Yeah, no, it does make a difference. Like, even I'm talking to you guys now, and I'm using, like, you can't see me, but I'm using my hands as well, just expressing my point of view. So yeah, it does make a difference. Just little things like that. I mean, I actually caught up with someone years ago, and I'm a big NBA fan as well, and he talks about NBA fantasy pretty much every day.
What team do you follow, Dan?
Oh, the Boston Celtics. So yeah.
Oh, same. Unreal.
Yeah, well, there you go. It's a small world, isn't it? So, yeah. I listen to,
Love
like, Locked On Celtics, and the
it. So
guy
do I.
there, yeah, he does it by himself. He's really good. And I listen to Locked On NBA Fantasy with Josh Lloyd, and I caught up with him. And he does a solo podcast pretty much every day, and he does 2 or 3 a day sometimes. And I sort of said, "Oh, how do you do it? Like, just talking by yourself?" And he sort of said, you got to think there's someone else you're talking to in the room. You can't just think that, you're talking to yourself. Otherwise, you're not going to get far. So, yeah, that's like when I do a solo podcast, which might be 20, 30 minutes, I'll think there's someone else there. Like, it might be a little bit like that movie The Machinist, or where he's talking, it's just the same person sort of thing. So, yeah, he's a schizophrenic. So, yeah, it can get a bit weird talking by yourself. But no, you guys are very good at it. Like, I stutter my way through podcasts, but I listen to you, Josh, sometimes, and even you, Jason. And you both are just very fluent and it comes out naturally. So, full credit to both of you. So, yeah, we learn off each other, which is the most important things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is really good. Let's get to the footy stuff, and we'll go to the awards that happened a week ago. And no surprises that Harry Sheezer got the Rising Star Award, especially after Ashcroft went down with an ACL. Josh, when was the last time you got this excited about a player that's played at our football club?
That's a great question. I tried to think about this a few days ago, and I genuinely can't remember. Most of the time in my life that I've followed the club, we've been fairly decent and haven't been getting top 3, to 5 picks. I don't know. I get very excited about key position players. So, I remember when we drafted Ben Mackay, and I was very excited. I think we drafted him as a forward. But honestly, I don't think ever, to be honest. And this crop of players coming through right now, we're all incredibly excited about. And I'm sure you guys have talked to all your other mates who don't support North, and no one really knows what's going on. But in a few years' time, we're going to be like, yeah, we knew this. We knew this about 3 years ago, and now we're dominating the league. Let's hope anyway.
Well, yeah, certainly hope so. What about you, Jason? It's such a bleak year. This kid just gives us hope, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I think the problem with Shees is that he stands out. Like, he's obviously a great player, but I think he stands out even more given we're such a poor side. Like, it's such a shame that, maybe it's shame's the wrong word, but like it's a blight on everyone else that he looks so clean, like he's got so much time, and everyone else just looks like they're fumbling it and they're always under pressure. He's
especially off half back as well. That position 100%. For us is so tough to play in such a poor defensive side. So I think that's why he shines so much as well.
Yeah, he's been tremendous. Like, Wardlaw looked fantastic too when he was in the middle of the year. Like, I can't think. I think of all the sort of top picks that we've had over the past 10 or 15 years, and a lot of them are like, sure, we had Lockie Hansen, and I don't know that I got excited about him. Like, he was a solid player, but I don't know that I was excited about him. But so many of those ones that kind of promise something, those ones that we've picked in, say, the 15 to 25, like, have been those ones that they've come in, they've played like 40 games. Like, Taylor Garner is one that comes to mind. Like, he was always it was always next year for him, and then he was off the list. We've got so many players like that, and I guess maybe that's why we're in that position that we're in right now. We haven't had the greatest development record lately, but I think when you look at Sheezel, you go, we know he can be a 300-game star for us if we can keep him around.
Oh, 100%. I guess that's a big problem, and that's where we are, Josh, is that development stage. That's why we've got a big gap in our list between 25 and 30. We seem to get players that get to start their careers off all right, but by the time they're 23, they're almost done and they're out of the system. That's where we've got to get it right. That age between 25 and 30, there's a big list gap there, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things through the last decade. I guess I never really knew that there was an issue there until it really, ran into us like a bus a few years ago. We've gone, okay, there's a problem here. And I'm really hoping that, obviously, Clarkson coming in and bringing in a lot of his guys and girls, I hope that we're building for like the next 10 to 15 years of success alongside hopefully getting a premiership or something in there, but, not dropping so drastically and so severely when we do lose a few players. So I haven't seen a drop like that for a while, but hopefully they're building for that sustained success. I'm not talking about getting as good as a Geelong and, never missing the finals, but hopefully they're building to try not to let us drop like this again.
Well, we're certainly hoping, and we've got a very young team of under 21-year-olds, and we sort of we can't start this up basically. So we can't just go back 2 or 3
no
years
pressure
time. Yeah, you can't just go back to 2 or 3 years time and sort of say, all right, we're going to start this all over again. I mean, eventually, with the amount of high draft picks we're going to pick 2 and 3 maybe this year. You can't get, eventually, it's got to come good at some point, and that's been a big problem for us. Probably it is where we are, and I guess another thing is, Jason, our recruiting. Once we didn't get the Dustin Martins, I think we panicked a bit and started getting Jared Polak, Dom Tyson, players that were almost past their best, and or they just weren't North Melbourne or Shinboner type of players.
Oh, if we had $1 or $10 for every time we've been allegedly this close to getting a star, like Dustin Martin was allegedly across the line, Josh Kelly was allegedly across the line, Andrew Gaff, like it goes on. We've had all this money to throw at people and none of them have come. So we've gone to the dregs.
I think it was described
as.
War
chest, that's it. And we've ended up paying that money to someone like Polek, who, I don't want to go over over that ground, but I think it's just like we're going to have money again because they've actually sorted out our salary cap for the most part now. So hopefully we can go after some players when we're on the up. But I do hope that we're not going for those players that we think are going to solve all our problems. We're going for those players that are, a grade or another club that might actually want to come across and, have more opportunity or get paid that extra bit of money, because I don't know why no one wants to come here. I think we're great. We're perfectly suited to someone like a Ben Cunnington who wants, to stay out of the limelight and get paid lots of money. So hopefully when the results start improving, we can start actually getting some of those players and paying them the right amount of money.
Yeah, that's. Judging from what we'll talk about recruiting soon. Judging from players that we're looking to trade or draft, or even get from other clubs like free agents, it looks like we're sort of going for outside players by the looks of it. But we'll talk about that soon. We'll continue with the awards last week, and Nick Larkey. I think the last game of the season sealed his All-Australian berth. 9 goals, and we played fast that game. He's the most targeted forward in the game this year. He needs help, obviously. We all know that. But if that last round issue against Gold Coast is anything to go by in the way we play, he could kick more next year than this year, couldn't he, Josh?
Yeah, for sure. I was so happy and shocked when Nick Larkey got into the All-Australian team, because I feel like for years Ben Brown was just snubbed from that team, even though he was kicking more goals than like a Tom Hawkins, but Hawkins would get in because of his team success. And a lot of my friends are actually Cats fans, unfortunately, and they were saying, oh, he's got more goal contributions or goal assists. It's like, you're a key forward. Your job's to kick goals. So I feel like Nick Larkey did it for all of us who were frustrated in that Ben Brown era. I was fully expecting him not to make the team, not because he doesn't deserve it, but just because we're North, we're smaller, you're going to fill the team with pies anyway. So yeah, I was over the moon for Nick Larkey when he got in, because he absolutely deserves it. And it was interesting, a couple of days ago at my job at the barbershop, I was talking to a client. He was a North fan, and his opinion was actually that Nick Larkey's overrated. And I couldn't believe a North fan would even stutter anything like that. And the two sides of the argument, which is interesting to see what you guys think as well, would be some people think that he's the only target up there, so of course he kicked that many goals. But other people go, well, he was the only target, so he was triple teamed all the time, along with, if you do watch North games, the awful disposal inside 50. So yeah, look, he absolutely deserved it. I love Nick Larkey, and he'll be there for years to come.
Yeah. What about you, Jason? I mean, I heard you on the pod say last week that maybe with Zeeble and McDonald, we were one-dimensional and too slow, basically, out of that back half. That last round, we had Sheasel, Goda, Scott behind the ball, and we moved it super quick with pace. And it makes a difference, doesn't it, to a key forward like Larkey?
Oh, huge difference. And I think, I talked about the fact that I think you can't pin the change in that Gold Coast on just one thing. To me, it looked like the instructions to the players were just get the ball moving forward at all costs. Whereas I think, to me, it looked like in previous weeks, there was a bit of a, let's try and get the ball moving a bit quicker. I think it was a bit of that, let's just play as fast as we can. And if we lose by 10 goals, who cares? But it looks so good. And I think it is having those younger players that, have played a more modern style of football more recently. I think they're also just not scarred by what's happened over the past 5 years. Like, they're not worrying about every single kick that they're going to miss a target and get dropped straight away. So yeah, the ball movement was sensational. And then that's what happens. Like, Larky kicked 9 goals because the ball was getting there fast. And as Josh said, like, he wasn't getting triple teamed because the ball was getting there so fast. Like, it made a massive difference for him. I thought it made Eddie Ford and Paul Curtis look way better than they'd looked as well. And Paul Curtis was trying to get it on fast onto Larky as well. Like, it made such a difference. And we didn't even have like Zerha and Stevenson in the midfield in the forward line or another key forward there. Like, it certainly wasn't a full strength forward line. And we looked like world beaters. So if the ball gets in there, it's a massive difference to the forwards. And I love that ball movement. I want to see that every week next year.
Yeah, I guess, and the thing is, and maybe you'll agree with this, Jason, they're good ball users. Goater's a good user of the ball. He has been a bit up and down last few weeks. Baylor Scott's generally a good user of the ball. He seemed to be anyway the other day. When he's moving it quick, he generally makes good decision. And Harry Sheezel, it makes a difference getting the ball in people's hands that can use a football rather than probably, Jack Ziebell or Luke McDonald this year, can be a bit unpredictable. I think Jack Ziebell's got the record for most out of bounds on the fulls in the history of the AFL, JT.
I think Josh is going to disagree with us on this one, but I haven't loved Ziebell this year. I think he's been okay, but it's that classic. I think he's intercepted really well, and then his ball movement is not. It's not full but fast ball movement. He has had those out of bounds, which are kind of glaring issues. And, everyone in our defense has made mistakes. Like, Luke McDonald's probably got just as many mistakes in his show reel. But I think the difference is that Ziebell wasn't biting off those tricky kicks. He was kind of, to me at least, he was chipping it around. Whereas Bergman and Goater and Scott, like, these guys were just trying to move it on and bite off those kicks into the middle and most times hitting them. So I think, to me, that was the difference. But I'm sure, Josh, go on. What are you going to defend Ziebell on this one, Josh?
Look, I'm going to defend Ziebell on this one. I think it's so interesting to me how, we can all watch the same games and have different views of what's going on the field. It's like, and I'm not saying I'm right with this, by the way. It's just sort of from my perspective. But I think I remember the first game against the Eagles and watching that. And it's the first time for so long I've seen us, when it's in our back 50, chip the ball around to our team and sort of maintain possession, switch side to side, or just maintain possession of the ball. And Ziebell led that for me. I think, yes, he did kick the ball out of bounds on the full and have some glaring issues. And I'm not taking away from those. They were at crucial times, especially the Bombers game, which we all remember. But I don't think we have that control and that stability down back without him. And I really don't think his disposal of the ball was that bad until it was a glaring issue. I don't know the numbers, and the numbers might prove me incredibly wrong here, but the way he marked, every time he had the ball, he would try and find that short pass, which maintained our possession. And I don't know, I think he was a lot better than people are giving him credit for. I dare say, and maybe till halfway through the season, he was top 3, if not top 2 in our best and fairest with the way he was playing. And he did drop off towards the end, just like someone like a Goldstein, I think, did a little bit as well, because they're older blokes. But I don't know. I think Jack Ziebell led our possession game from the back early doors. And I don't know. I just love him, the way he intercept marks and all that sort of stuff. I just think his leadership's too important. And I think he gets criticised on his disposal a little bit too harshly.
Yeah, and I think we look at a small sample size of one round against Gold Coast and think all our problems are solved because Ziebell and McDonald weren't there. I mean, we don't have a big sample size. Yeah, and I agree. I reckon Jack Ziebell was very good at the intercept. I think there was a game maybe with a couple of rounds to go towards the end of his career where he got about 5 or 6 intercept marks or something like that, and he played a really good game in the back half. And yeah, I mean, we won't take away his courage or getting the best out of himself. And like he said, I think the first half of the year was really, really good. And he even said in his retirement speech, he started getting niggles in his body, and he put his, and no one puts their body through more than he has over the course of his career. And I think it just caught up with him in the end. And yeah, he did well to last till 32 because he had, what did he do? Broke 2 legs, had shoulder injuries. Yeah, he put his body through a lot. So yeah, and look, at the end of the day, yeah, we're just looking at a small sample size of one round where we had Sheasel go to Scott and Bergman. Very good users of the ball. But, yeah, I mean, push comes to shove, after if you give them 4 or 5 weeks, last 4 or 5 weeks, they probably would have struggled, without the leadership there. Who knows? But we can only go by the round 23 against Gold Coast, and we did use the ball pretty well, I guess, in that game. Another player I want to get your opinion with, and we'll go to our backyard, and Taron Thomas. Now, I've got no idea if he wants to stay or go. I don't think he knows. Where do you sit with him, Jason? The last couple of weeks in the season showed particular player he is and the quality he does show, but there's always that off-field stuff, which is always there, and I can't trust him that he will make the smart decisions based on previous history. Can you?
No, I can't. To put it simply, I think he might leave, but I'm not saying I've got any insider knowledge or anything. I just think that it seems like maybe he is blaming or thinking that the club didn't support him. That seems to be kind of the rumors, which I think is like ridiculous. I think we've supported him well above what we needed to. But I think at this point, given he's got a year left on his contract, if he's going to leave, I think now's the time to trade him, because we've got a bit of power in the situation. It's going to be really hard to get anything for him next year because he'll be out of contract. For the record, I think he's arguably our best player. So I don't want him to go, but if he's going to be a bit, if he's going to make us work for it, I certainly can't trust his behavior off the field at the moment. And I don't know that I can trust his character, because we've seen that when he really cracks the sads, it really impacts the way that he plays. Like last year, I know he's going through a lot of personal stuff, but he was a completely different player second half of this year when he was focused on playing. Like he was probably our best player for the last sort of 8 weeks or so. But yeah, I don't know. It's a really tough one. It's kind of, at the end of the day, I think you want players at the club that want to be there. And if he's a bit, if he feels angry or upset with the club, I'd prefer to try and get rid of him now, get something for him and cut our losses and move on, because I just don't know that he's worth the risk with all the off-field stuff.
No, fair enough. It's funny. I just got a message. I don't know if you guys know Jesse, the guy I do a podcast with. He just sent me a message and he said, Taron confirmed he's staying, wants to stick by the club for sticking by him. So that's what coming out of Taron Thomas's mouth, apparently. That's just come through now, so I don't know if that's true or not. So, but
if true, yep, sign him up for 6 years. But if not, see you later.
I mean, where do you sit with him? I know his football, Josh. I know his football ability is not a question, but the attitude and commitment to the cause sounds like it is concerned, or maybe it's just blown up by the media looking for a story, which we all know that happens. You obviously want him to stay, don't you, Josh?
Oh yeah, of course I want him to stay. I think maybe I don't know why I have this opinion, but I really do think I'd back him with his off-field stuff. I don't know why I'm saying that, but I look at players, even like a Tex Walker, a Jordan De Goey, no one questions their attitudes anymore, or not that I see anyway. It depends what people want to put it down to without getting too into anything. It's just, making a mistake when you're young, you'd back him to hopefully better himself, and he's on the field so important to us. Like Jason said, if he wants to stay, then sign him up, give him that 6-year deal, because I do agree on his day he can be our best player on that park. But I don't know. I've just got this feeling we should back him. And since he's come back, I know he unfollowed the club and that sort of stuff after the Eagles match, but I noticed on the weekend that the first guy running into all the celebrations when we kicked goals was Taron Thomas. He was the first one there. He was jumping on people. He looked so happy. And it's very confusing because you see a thing like unfollowing it and his general attitude sometimes, and you're like, this guy doesn't want to be here. But then you look on the weekend and he's just tearing the game apart. He's the first one in to celebrate, and he seems to love everybody. So, I'm not sure what's in his head. I don't think he knows exactly, but I hope he stays. I hope he stands by the club who has stood by him. But if we're going to talk about his off-field stuff, I think I would back him to better himself and to move on and be more of an adult from here on in and have the career we all hope he can have.
Yeah, I mean, he's still young. I think he's only 23, isn't he? So, yeah, hopefully he's
think
learned
so,
his
yeah.
lessons in life. And because, yeah, like you said, I mean, we need that type of play. We need a sort of outside class. We've only got a handful that can do what no one can do what he does, I guess, but we've only got a handful of players that can run and carry and, use the ball really well. So, yeah, he's important to our structure going forward. I guess Ben Mackay is the other one. Jason, if it's pick three's on the offer, would you want to take that, or do you still want to keep Ben Mackay?
Oh, it's pretty similar, really. Like I think if he's happy to stay at North, I want him at North. I mean, he's clearly shopping himself around and seeing what options he's got. But to me, he's an established player. I know he's had an up and down year, but there's very little risk to me associated with Ben Mackay. Like we kind of know what he is. Pick three, like if it's a curtain or it's like, a top draft pick, there's always risk associated with those players. And I'd prefer the known quantity. It seems like he's going. So I think if he was staying, he probably would have signed at this point. So it's just around getting as much as we can, which obviously we're hoping for that number 3 draft pick, or we're making whoever wants him trade. But yeah, I would prefer Mackay over the draft pick, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I think we've got to kind of come to terms with that and get figuring out who we're going to recruit to play defence for us next year with Logue out and Mackay gone.
It sounds like this is what I've heard, that if he gets an offer of 750,000 plus, then it will be pick 3. Josh, would you want pick 3, or do you want his football? Do you want him? Because we also need a key defender as well. I mean, we especially with Griffin Lowe going out for 12 months only recently, he'll be out till probably halfway through the next year. So, yeah, I mean, it makes it pretty tricky, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an important thing to remember as well, in my opinion. Like, key defenders are the hardest position in the league to find. Good key defenders. There's no harder position to find in the league. And if it was pick 3 or Ben Mackay, I'm picking Ben Mackay. I think the other important thing, as an example, with the Taron Thomas, say, interested in like the Gold Coast and we trade for picks, 6. I don't want too many draft picks as well. We need established players and known commodities. And I think that's very important with how much youth we do have. Look, if we got pick 3 for Ben Mackay, I would be okay with that. I don't think it's bad compensation at all. We can't complain at all with that. But if I had a choice, I would be keeping Ben Mackay. And sort of like my Taron Thomas take, I think Ben Mackay might be a little bit misunderstood. He's never been a big body language guy. And, people saying he's checked out. One, we don't really know that. And two, I don't know. I know he's in the leadership group, but I've never seen him as that guy on the field that's going to be loud and vibrant. I do think he will go, but I wouldn't be shocked if he stayed. But yeah, I don't know if we fully know the full story with Ben Mackay there. But if it's down to pick 3 or Mackay, I'm going to pick Mackay.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, just this year, I guess there's been inconsistency with his game. He's had some, when he plays a bad game, everyone says he's checked out. But when he plays a good game, no one says anything, do they? So, yeah, I mean, like you said, we don't know. I mean, we don't know what goes inside someone's head. From what I've seen, he looks invested every time he plays. And like you said, Josh, he's not a big player that's running around, talking and all that sort of thing. He leads with his actions, which is intercept marking and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see how we go. And talking about the draft, Jason, I mean, we've made it a bit difficult now. We've got to pick 2. Do you think we should be trading up to get pick 1? It seems like teams are going to make a play for it. Now, I can't say that I watch Harley Reid, but the consensus is that he's going to be a gun and doesn't want to go to Western Australia. Or do we just keep pick 2 and take Curtin, who is a key position defender and suits our needs more, especially if Ben Mackay leaves?
This one confuses me because I can't see the case for us to trade up. Like, I don't understand what would be in it for us, because if we've got pick 2 and they take Harley Reid, I'm super happy taking Curtin because that's exactly what we need, assuming that Mackay leaves. If West Coast don't want to take Harley Reid because they're worried and they instead take Curtin, fantastic. Then we get Harley Reid at pick 2, who's probably the best midfielder, or is the best midfielder in the crop. And whilst we're not crying out for midfielders, like, you'll take the best one in the draft pool. So I just don't, for me, looking from the outside, I can't see what the incentive for us to trade up would be, because I'm super happy with the mids that we've got. I don't need Harley Reid. But if he's there, of course, we'll take him at pick 2. I just don't. There seems to be some talk around maybe us giving up, say, pick 2 and our Port Adelaide pick from last year, and I don't understand what the incentive there is. Like, we don't need Harley Reid that badly, I think. So, no, I'm staying put at pick 2 for mine, and we take our pick 2 and we take our pick 3, and off we go.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. What about you, Josh? I mean, what Jason said, do we need another on baller that badly?
It's the hardest question for me. The entire time you guys were talking about that, my brain went from one side to another. I honestly, I don't know. I think what I originally thought was, if we keep Ben Mackay, yes, trade up for pick 1 and get Harley Reid. If we lose Ben Mackay, stay where we are and get Curtin. And then a worst case scenario is West Coast do take Curtin with 1 and Harley Reid drops in our lap. That's sort of where my head is going, but I kind of agree with Jason. If we do have to get rid of, pick 16, but I'm assuming it'll drop down to 20 or so after Gold Coast get all their top 10 selections from their academy. You can still get a really good key position player at that point. And I don't know. Whatever happens, I'm kind of happy with, as long as we play our cards right, because I think we've got a lot of leverage and pulling power this off season. But the first thing I did think was, if Mackay stays, trade up, get Harley Reid. If Mackay goes, take Curtin, or Harley Reid falls in our lap because West Coast take Curtin. But you could very, very easily persuade me to not do that and do something completely different. All I know is, if Aiden Corr's leading our defense next year, I'm terrified.
You got to admit, Josh, he was actually all right the last 6-7 weeks.
I agree. I've owned up to this too. It's kind of my thing now with what I've realized doing a podcast. I should have said this at the start. With doing a podcast now, I realize what I say is on the internet forever and people don't let it go. And obviously we know a couple of players that I'm not massive fans of, but Aiden Corr played very well for 6 to 8 weeks at the end of the year, but I'm still hurt from the year and a half of football previous to that. He can win me over, but it's going to take more consistency. I think, obviously, we saw, this isn't meant to be an Aiden Corr chat, but, Aiden Corr as our second defender looked incredibly good. But if it's Aiden Corr and another defender next year as our 2 keys, I'm not happy with that. So I'm not sure where I stand exactly. I wish he could be that third defender and play that Josh Gibson type role. But when he had that opportunity with Griffin, Logan, Mackay in there, he was awful. So I don't know if he plays like that, but we've got 2 other better defenders. That's what I want from him. But anyway, this wasn't meant to be Aiden Corr chat this early on.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, we might as well, just on that, and with trading and drafting coming up, Jason, it seems to me that we are getting lots of outside players with pace and skill, like Zach Vischer and Dylan Stevens. Outside of left footers, what else or who else should we be targeting this off season, Jason? Because I think Clarkson loves left footers a bit too much.
He does love a left footer, and I'm not opposed to a left footer, but I don't need 18 in the side. I mean, if Mackay leaves, we obviously need key backs, and I think Blind Freddie could see that. I think that small forward with actual small forward craft is my next need, like that Nick Watson type. So if we've got 2 and 3, I'm wanting Watson at pick 3, because we've got so many of those medium forwards, like Eddie Ford, like Paul Curtis, like Curtis Taylor, like Jaden Stevenson, like the list goes on and on, but they're not necessarily exactly right. Like there's so many that play that small, medium, more marking forward role. So I think we need that kind of crafty small forward, like someone that's always at the bottom or front and center of a pack. I think that's my number one need. And then it's more like, what can we do with the outside run? So a Zach Vischer type. And, I'm really hoping that he doesn't turn out to be another Jared Polec that we pay way too much to play average football. We'll see. I think then it's around, what do we do with the ruck? And I know, again, Josh has got some strong thoughts around the ruck, but
whatever do you
I don't mind. I don't mind Cherry. I think he's okay. But we don't have enough ruckmen. Like Hamish Free's not going to play AFL footy. So I don't
Jacob
really
Edwards?
want. Yeah, no, he's gone. Yep. So I think depending on what we do with Goldie, we either need to get on that ruck merry-go-round and just pick up one of those 25-year-old ruckmen that's not getting a game elsewhere, or we've got to invest in a ruckman in the draft and we've got to bank on Cherry for 3 or 4 years, because you know that a ruckman that we take at the draft isn't playing like decent AFL footy for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, no, all good points. I mean, do you think we need a small forward, Josh, or are you happy with Kane Turner playing that role?
Well, look, I unlike most of the fan base, Kane Turner hasn't turned me around on him so far. Look, no, Kane Turner needs to just please go away. I like his fight, and I remember when he first started at the club, I think the commentators were calling him the first 400 or 500 gamer or something like that, because he started when he was like 16.
Yeah,
But,
that's right.
We do definitely need that tiny, like smaller Charlie Cameron type small forward. But as we know, that I think there's different positions we might need to invest in before that. I think on that draft discussion quickly, if Harley Reid does go 1 and we've got 2 and 3, Watson and Curtin would be the 2 I'd be taking in a heartbeat, because I've seen some look, I've only seen highlight reels of Nick Watson, but he looks so dynamic. I guess Braden George coming in next year, different type of player, but we've got so many of these forwards. But I would definitely be going out to get a small forward, but not the first position I would be going to recruit.
Yeah, we've been linked with the key defender from Sydney. I don't know anything about him, Lewis Malikan. He's a key defender. Do you know anything about him, Jason? I can't remember. He's played 50-odd games. I can't remember ever seeing him play a game.
Yeah, I've watched him a bit. I had him in my Supercoach team, not because he's a high-scoring player, but literally because he was going to play this year for a period of weeks. So I did keep a little bit of an eye on him. He's not going to set the world on fire, but he'll fill a gap for us. Like, I think he almost, and this might scare you, Josh, but to me he looks a bit like Aiden Core, but with less foot skills.
Stop
he's
it,
that
mate.
classic.
Is that supposed to be painful?
Well, look, he's not a massive player. Like, he's in that mid 190s, and I don't know that he's super crafty, but he's that kind of dour defender that
apparently he's a top 16 one-on-one player in the league, though. That's a stat I saw getting thrown around about him. And if he's good one-on-one, I think that's all we really need. If he's physical, he's big, and he's good one-on-one, I think that's a position we don't really have. I think Griffin Logue can do that to a degree, but Mackay's not the best one-on-one. He holds his own, but he's more of an intercept. And Aiden Core, I think, is one of the worst one-on-one defenders I've ever seen. So if Melican can come in and do that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think he competes. It's just around whether or not, I think if we have, say, him and Mackay in that same defense, which I don't think we will have that problem because Mackay's leaving, but hypothetically, neither of them are doing much with the ball. Like, they're not driving the ball out. I think you can really only afford to have one of those key defenders that doesn't attack at all. So I think if we can get him on the cheap and he's kind of fills that gap of Mackay leaving, I'm happy to do that. But you wouldn't want to overpay for someone of his talents, I guess.
Yeah, I think we got Josh Walker. He was like a top 10 one-on-one player when we got him in. So, yeah, it might be, I don't know, maybe he's similar to him, just a player that can do a job for you for a couple of years till someone else comes along. I mean, Josh, there's an imbalance on the list. We have 20 midfielders, 20 half-forward flankers, and nothing else, really. I mean, you talked about Ruckman. We are linked with the Western Bulldogs Ruckman called Sweet. He can't get a game because of Tim English, obviously, so maybe he comes in. But there is talk that Hamish Free will get probably another year, which is a bit surprising from what I've seen of him.
Yeah, I've barely seen anything from Hamish Free. I think, and let me know if this is wrong, guys, but is Hamish Free not just like another big lumbering 90s style ruckman? Like, I really do think the ruck position is, like I've said, the ruck is dead, which maybe is a little bit harsh, but the ruck position has evolved so much that this is why I'm not on the Tristan Xerri train. And, to get onto it, I mean, that is the number one. Ruckman is the number one position I would be recruiting. And then it's a gap, and then it's the rest. And we need a lot more, but that's how dire I think our ruck position is. I can't remember a contested mark Tristan Xerri took all year. And I don't know. I think your ruckman absolutely needs to be decent at ground level, and Tristan Xerri isn't that. So if we can get a ruckman that's got some sort of ground ability, I think you've just got to be able to run and jump at the ball, hit it roughly to an advantage. But once it hits the deck, you're not completely irrelevant. And that's sort of what I see in like a Tim English and that sort of stuff. And Tim English being the All-Australian ruckman, I didn't think he was like that good of a ruckman in the league, but I think that also proves that, you've got guys like Gawn and Grundy and whoever you want to throw in there, Big O from Brisbane, that the ruck position's evolved so much that traditional ruckman is basically gone now. And I would love a player like a Majak Daw in that ruck spot. I've said before, go out and get Radaglia to play in the ruck for us because he's okay at ground level. He can play football because he's playing in defense for them. That's the sort of style ruckman I think we need now because, as we know, without going on the rant, I don't think Tristan Xerri is it. And if we've got Harley Reid, LDU, and Wardlaw in that midfield, I don't want Tristan Xerri dishing it up to him.
Josh, just quickly, do you want to take a guess how many marks Tristan Xerri took in the last 4 games of the season?
Marks or contested marks?
Marks in general, not even contested marks.
In how many games?
Last 4 of the season.
I'm going to say 3.
Close, 2. 2 marks for a ruckman. That's unbelievable. His hands have been, and like you said, his hands have been terrible. And it did show periods last year where his hands were starting to get a little bit better. So I don't know if the injury affected him from round 1 where he broke his leg in quite a serious injury, that maybe that affected him. But, I mean, I guess the other big tall, have you been at all impressed with Callum Coleman-Jones, Jason? Because he's probably another one. I mean, he's on big money. He's the second key forward that could help Nick Larkey, but geez, we haven't seen much of him, have we?
No, we haven't. I think I like him as the second ruckman. I don't think he is a full-time ruckman. He just needs to get a good run at it. He had that patch in the middle of the year where he played a couple of really good games, kicked a couple of goals, and was handing a couple off. I don't know that he's the smartest footballer. I think he makes some kind of dopey decisions sometimes.
That's ruckman
because that's part-time ruckman. That's right. But I think, I like the look of him, but he needs to stay on the park. It's the same with Comben. Like I was so excited at Comben at the start of the year. Like I think most North fans were. He'd finally, cracked the spot and he was going to stay in there and stay fit. And then, unfortunately, got a horrific injury. Like my worry is both of them look like they could be fantastic, but now they've both got some kind of serious injury concerns, like Coleman-Jones with the concussions, and obviously Comben's had every injury under the sun. So I love Coleman-Jones if he's fit, and I think he deserves a good block if he's fit, but the worry is that he won't be able to stay fit, I guess.
Yeah, look, I don't know if that was just a precaution at the end. I probably just thought the second concussion in the last month or so, let's just put him in cotton wool for the rest of the season. But, he's still got a long way to go, and I think he probably was similar to Tristan Xerri, just didn't take enough marks. And when that ball hits the ground in the forward line, he's pretty much borderline useless. So, it makes it really tough. But there's a lot of holes in the list at the moment. So, in saying all that, Josh, would you rather does the club, do you think, need to be a bit more patient and let these kids develop and just go into the draft, take the picks, or do you think we really need to target 5 or 6 players this off-season?
I think we kind of need to do a combination of both, to be honest. I think with the Coleman-Jones, I loved what I saw from him from that Sydney Swans and the Collingwood game, the Essendon game. He had that month or so of form where he was the exact missing piece that we needed. And then after the bye, like a lot of players, to be honest, just completely dropped off. I'm not sure recruiting like a key forward would be a good idea with Coleman-Jones and Comben on the list. I think we need to make sure we don't go too young as well, because as exciting as the last game was, when we've gone young every other time through the season, it hasn't worked very well. So I don't want to pretend it's all okay just because of the one game in round 23 or 24 or whatever it is now. So I don't know. I don't want to go too young. We need some experience, and that's where I am a bit worried that Zeebel's going to go. Getting a Lewis Melican or something like that, especially down back with some experience, is a good thing. And maybe as we go forward, get some younger players for a bit of spark and excitement. But I don't know. Defense is so hard to play in this league, especially when our midfield likes to let the ball walk through it a lot of the time. And I don't know, recruiting experience down back would make me feel better, and maybe some exciting sort of mids and forwards through the draft would be a good idea.
No, fair enough. Yeah, we'll finish with the best and fairest that's going to come up next month, I believe it is. Jason, what's your tip for the top three?
Yeah, when I had to think about this, it's actually, I don't know that there's much debate around kind of the top 4 or 5 players because there haven't been that many players that have played most of the year and played pretty well. Like, I think I'll hazard a guess that it's going to go Bailey Scott, Nick Larkey, Harry Sheasel, but I think Zeeble will be up there because he's played pretty well at the start of the year. I think Logue and LDU will poll well, but they probably just didn't play enough games. Yeah, I think beyond that, like Scott, he polled really well last year. I think he's a great chance to win it. I think he was really consistent. Like we know, we could talk about Sheasel for years, so I'm not going to go over that. And I mean, Larky kicked 71 goals in the team that finished 17th. So if he's not polling votes, there's something wrong. So I think that's my top 3, but I could see, a Zeeble getting it sneaky in there, or even an LDU because he was really good when he was good, or when he was playing rather. But I think they're the 3 for me: Larky, Sheasel, Scott.
Josh, I think you've got it that Harry Sheasel was going to win quite comfortably in your 3-2-1, the Sean Atley Cup, you call it, or the Sean Atley Medal.
Yes.
It'd be pretty similar with the top 3 there too, wouldn't it? Like outside of the top 3 that Jason just mentioned, there's not much else that really could come up.
No, I was trying to think of players who might be 4 to 6, and I think Zeeble, I think LDU, just because when he was there, he was so good. I don't know. I wonder who else would kind of be there, but I'm really struggling because we had such patchy players. I mean, Jaden Stevenson was decent for the first half of the year, especially at the start. So he might poll okay. I liked what Griffin Logue did, but the defenders don't usually get the credit they deserve. Who else was even in our team? I think Taran for that second half of the year, who knows? He might be in the top 5 or 6 as well. So bit grim because players who have played half the season are going to probably be in our top 5. But if I was going to hazard a guess at the winner, I reckon Sheasel wins it with Larky next and Bailey Scott third for me. But it could go any direction.
Yeah, I'll probably go Sheasel, Scott, Larky, but I mean, in any order really. It could be Larky could win it and or so forth. And like you said, I think it's just weighted numbers. I mean, Todd Goldstein will probably come top 6 to top 8 because he's played pretty much most games. Whoever's played probably more than 12 games through the year will probably come top 10 just on weighted numbers. So.
Well, that's it. There's so many of those. Like Zerha's another one that played really well in patches. Like Eddie Ford came in second half of the year and like he didn't light the world on fire, but he played some good games. Like there's so many
Eddie
of
Ford's
those.
a good shout, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many of those guys that have played like 12 to 15 games and probably played sort of 8 or 9 good ones. And that's probably good enough to crack the top 10 this year because they've been so inconsistent.
What did you guys think of? Because someone I don't think is going to poll very well this year is Jai Simpkin. Like, what did you guys think of his season?
We didn't even mention him, did we?
Yeah,
I think I think he had he started the season well and then the injuries really slowed him down. I don't know what his best position is because I do think that his best position is an inside mid, but based on what our list looks like going into next year, I don't know if he's in our top 3 inside mids, which I think is a bit of a challenge. I thought he had an okay year, but he certainly wasn't as good as he was last year.
Would you put Phillips or him in the midfield? Which one of those would you say is going to be more in the midfield next year?
Well, hopefully Phillips. I think Phillips is a better in and under player, whereas Jai Simpkins, he's got those smooth moves. He can drop a step on someone. Like I haven't seen Phillips do that. So I think I'd prefer to have Phillips handballing it to Simpkin than the other way around. What do you think?
I don't disagree with that. I think Simpkin I've said this on a couple of pods. I think Simpkin might have to, as much as I love Jai Simpkin, I think he's a great captain, but I think he's going to have to reinvent his game a little bit to be like a winger or a half forward. His disposal is probably not quite clean enough to be off half back. And you're right. He can step around people. And he's a confident player when he's on, but yeah, I think LDU, Wardlaw, Phillips, Taran, even a Hugh Greenwood or something is probably going to be in the midfield ahead of him. But I think out of all those group of players, Simpkin's the one that's got the most versatility to be on a wing or a half forward. But then there is the other problem of we've got so many half forward / wingers. How many players can we put on the park?
Yeah, and I think just to add on to that, like when I was thinking about what our team looks like for the future, we do have so many of those players that just seem to be able to play one position. Like, I don't think Phillips can do anything other than being inside mid.
Yeah.
And I don't think Paul Curtis can do anything other than be a small forward. Like, we need those players that can play in the midfield and then go and rest in the forward line. And I don't know if we have enough of those because they're a bit one-dimensional, I guess. I think that's part of the reason we've had so many issues with this plethora of medium-sized forwards and sort of one-pace midfielders. They can't play another position. Like Lazaro. Like, he looked so good round 24 playing as a mid.
Looked good, didn't
but
he?
He can't play anywhere else, and I don't know that long term he's going to be in the
Tom
side.
Powell as well.
Yeah.
Another one. They just can't play half forward.
Dean, what do you think is our most needed position to recruit in the off season?
Anyone that's probably over 190 centimetres will help. That can play in the back line or forward line, just to help out. But yeah, it looks like the way Clarkson played that last round, it looks like that's the way he wants to play. And he wants to recruit players that are quick on the outside, like Fisher, Stevens, that have got good skills. So he obviously wants to get pace and skill on the outside. So that would be a bonus. But we obviously need a key defender if Ben Mackay leaves. There's no doubt about that. Or at least a placeholder for till Griffin Lowe comes back. Whoever that might be, whether it's Lewis Malikan or someone else, I'm not too sure. But well, possibly. So, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's players out there. You just got to find them at the end of the day. So, I mean, it seems like, teams found these little hidden gems like Toby Bedford for the GWS Giants, pretty much got him for nothing. Even Bulldog got Oscar Baker, who's not a bad player for nothing, really. And we seem to just stick with Daniel Howe and Kane Turner. Players that, we've seen their ceiling and it's not that high. Whereas, I'd like to shoot for a player that's not getting an opportunity somewhere else. That's like a Burgess from Gold Coast. I think he'd be a good backup sort of player, and a player that could, that you get for nothing. That's that's got a bit of a high ceiling based on his VFL form. He kicked 5 goals on the weekend against the Brisbane Lions in the reserves. I know he didn't do anything against us in round 24, but he's a player that's never going to get an opportunity in Gold Coast, and he might be a Peter Wright. You never know. So, yeah, I mean, we need to get tall players, and we obviously need to get highly skilled outside players. So, we'll see how we go with all that. Anyway, you boys want to ask anything else before I let you go, Josh?
Oh, I mean, not in particular. I guess just from that chat, like what's that guy with the mustache for Collingwood? Markov, I think it is. I know he's broke into the side late in the year for them, but he's out of contract. I think I would love to not throw too much money at him, but like throw a bit of coin at him because he looks all right. I think he that sort of run off half back or wing. If we want quick players to overlap. And he's got a cool mustache, so he's going to become a cult hero. I want to wear a mustache to the game just because he's on our team. So we should throw money at him from a marketing perspective alone.
Yeah, I think he's just about to sign another year with the Pies. Well, that's what I've heard anyway. But
I probably would too if they was in that position.
yeah. I mean, another player, that's got did get an opportunity at Gold Coast that we could have got for free. But we seem to miss out on these types of players. Instead, we get players like Jacob Edwards. So, Jason, anything else you want to add?
No, I think it's just, you're right. We want to try and select those players that are actually showing something. I think in the past, we've been obsessed with taking like former first round draft picks that haven't worked out at other teams. And it's like, we're picking them based on their potential from 3 or 4 years ago. Like, let's pick these blokes that are maybe actually showing something in the reserves or at times at AFL level. Anyway, like, I think there's been so much change in the club in terms of recruiting and stuff. I know that some of the big hitters like Brady Rawlings is still there and Gavin Brown's still there. I think that there's still change to come. And I think that we're going to start to see with Clarko at the helm some more logical decisions happening behind closed doors, or at least if not, you might not see me podcasting in the future. I might have given up. But I've got hope, I think is what I'm trying to say there.
No, I think we've all got hope at the end of the day. But sometimes it's the hope that kills you too. So, yeah,
and that is true.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, Josh, where can people find your work anyway?
Everywhere except Twitter, to be honest with you. People keep telling me I need to get Twitter, so hopefully next year. But my podcast is Further North Podcast Facebook, Instagram. It's on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple, all those sort of things. So come and follow me. We look at old players you probably forgot about. It's always a fun time. And yeah, I'll be waiting to hang out.
I remember you did Lee Harding, and I was wrapped with that one because he was one of my
I
favourites.
loved Lee Harding, and I forgot his nickname was Turtle as well, and that just made me happy. But I loved that guy. What I'd do to have him off. Well, he was actually sort of a half back, and then sometimes was half forward as well. I don't know where he played.
Yeah, he started off. Sorry, Jason. Well, I just want to go on a rant for him. He started through as a half forward flanker, small forward, and then moved into the back line. I actually did an interview with him when I first started the podcast. So that was, awesome. Yeah, so that was good. Jason, where can people find your work?
Yeah, similar. Just North Pod on all good podcast services, and if you're looking to connect with you on Twitter or Instagram, or I should say X these days, I suppose, shouldn't I? I'm North Pod Show on all the social media, so similar. Happy to have a chat with anyone and podcast, and thanks, Dean, for having us both on. It's great that we we can just talk North Melbourne, and we don't worry about getting competitive with each other. It's good to, I think any North Melbourne content out there is great content. So it's good that we can get together. We'll have to do it again sometime.
No, that sounds good. Probably as soon as trade period or draft period or whatever that's period is, because it's all pretty close together. Once that sort of finishes up, we'll probably do another one, and one of you boys can host. But boys, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Yeah, like I said, we'll have to do this again. I'm happy to go on one of your shows or whatever works next time. No worries there. Josh, thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much, Dean. Thank you for having me.
Jason, pleasure to meet you, and we'll chat soon, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Dean. Thanks for having me on. And there you have it. Thank you so much, Dean, for organising and putting that together for us. I know it was suggested by someone on Twitter that we get together and do it. It was it was a fantastic idea. So it was great to chat with those lads about North Melbourne, and we can definitely maybe look to do something similar in the future, particularly if you listeners enjoyed it. Next week I will have up my my post-season review. I'll go through half the players, so I think I'm going to go jumper number 46 through to jumper number 24 and kind of review their seasons and give each player a bit of a score. And then the following week, we'll obviously go through the other half of the players. So that's what I've got coming for the next couple of weeks. Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this different kind of format of an interview. And I'll chat to you North fans in about a week's time. Go North. Thanks for listening to another episode of North Pod. Please subscribe to the podcast on your app and give me a rating or a review if you can. I'd really appreciate it. You can find me on all social media at NorthPod Show. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Threads, you name it, I'm there. I'll see you next episode.